All right, we'll get started now. Hello to everyone on this webinar. Ideate Dashboard for Autodesk BIM 360 is a cloud-based service that provides just-in-time information about Revit warnings within the BIM 360 project environment. So something about me, my name's David Haynes. I'm a director here at Ideate Software. I've been with Ideate Software 16 years, and I've been product manager for 2 products here at Ideate Software. Our original Ideate BIM link from 2011, and I am the proud product manager for our newest product, Ideate Dashboard 2020. You'll see my email address. If you should have any questions about Ideate Dashboard, please reach out to me. I will be very responsive in getting back to you. Also want to mention on this webinar our proctor, Richard Taylor. He'll be taking questions in the questions box in the GoToWebinar panel. Companies are using BIM 360 as a platform where users work from home, firms with disparate offices, or consultants in different locations. If you have lots of BIM 360 projects and want to know about Revit warnings, which Ideate Software views as a key aspect of model health, the current workflow is to open each one of these projects in your desktop version of Revit to view those warnings. But what do you really want to know is about what are the critical warnings and where are they? Which file may have the biggest problem in your many files that you have within BIM 360, and to determine who's going to fix these warnings. The Ideate Dashboard, as I said earlier, provides just-in-time information regarding Revit warnings for users, BIM managers, and BIM team leads in the Autodesk BIM 360 Project Information Management environment. It provides for you relevant, curated data that is actionable. It's clearly easier than opening each project in Revit and then using Ideate Explorer. You have one location to review all your BIM 360 files in the BIM 360 homepage, and it gives you quicker access to those Revit warning information for your BIM 360 projects. Clearly, less downtime. More and more projects are collaborative efforts, both using internal and external teams. And BIM 360 right now is being used by firms as a repository for multiple firm projects. All right, let us now go on and do a presentation. Let me just change my screen here to, all right. So the very first thing I want to talk about is how you get connected to this. And it's done through the Forge API that Autodesk has provided through what's called a custom integration. And I'm going to show you the steps. In this particular case, to get the custom integration done, you must be the BIM 360 site project administrator. This does not take very long, and it's fairly easy to do. So I'll show you here. I am the account administrator for this site, and I'm under the account admin tab. And along this bar up here, it's under settings. And then in this lower panel, custom integration. You can see I have quite a few custom integrations. The one that I'll be talking about is the one that Ideate Software has here that's called Ideate Dashboard for Autodesk BIM 360. And it's done if it doesn't show up, which it won't for those of you who haven't acquired our service yet. You just simply click this button, Add Custom Integration. Let me re-sign back in. All right, let me go back to where I was. Settings, Custom Integrations, and here I was, Add Custom Integration. So you want to keep both of these clicked or checked, and you want to invite the developer, and then we will send you the email, and you simply click the send. It comes to us. We then come back to you and grant you access, and you get the right to accept that access. And then what happens when that is done, then this icon shall appear as active. If at any time you want to deactivate it, it's fairly simple to suspend it. And after you suspend it, you can then delete it. Anyway, so once it's there, you now have that integration process completed that allows you to for us to use the Forge API to read your file in BIM 360 and pull out the relevant warning data information and then send it back and have it visualized. All right, so that's custom integration. I'll talk more about the assets that we have available for users at the end of the presentation, but I did want to cover this one key step. Right. So let's go into a project and let's create some visualizations that we have available. Here's a project. This is the project homepage, which is project homepage right there. I have just cleared out the other visuals, the other cards that are available here, such as weather and location, just so it's a little easier for us to see. All right, so the custom integration's done. You just simply hit this customize button right up here, and then here where it says card library. And then because we have a branded card within the partner card environment, all I need to do is type IDE, and that gets me the one that you need. Click right here, and then down at the bottom, add card. All right. So now we want to configure the card. We click here. All right. Well, the card title is not important. That's wholly changeable by you now or later on. It's the partner URL that we will be dealing with. In the instructions we give you, we tell you what information to type here into the partner URL, and it's easy to copy and paste it from our web page into here. And the first one I want to show you is our Stoplight KPI, key performance indicator. Make sure I've typed that correctly. I have. All right. So there's one other step here along the way, and that's the login. And what this login is a requirement by Autodesk BIM 360 to again agree to allow data to flow back and forth. So right in the bottom left-hand corner, you only have to do this once. This OAuth login or authorization login lasts 2 to 3 hours. So click here, sign in. And because I've already put my credentials in once, it doesn't ask me to do it again. If I hadn't, then it would. And it's just simply that dashboard is requesting permission for the following information: to write data, to manage your data, and to view your data. The writing data just is the creation of the card. Manage your data just means it's giving data back and forth. We're only asking for some information here. I'll show you in just a second. Click allow. You only have to do that once. We'll not have to do that again during this. All right. And so we've created this kind of wizard to help you through. So each card has a custom URL. And so that's very easy to do here by just copying URL to the clipboard. That takes care of step 1. Step 2 says click the customize gear for the card you're interested in, upper right-hand corner, and click configure. So I click the gear, then click configured. Now it's best here to use 2 keyboard shortcuts, Control A for selecting all, and Control V to paste the copied URL in. As you can see, this has a 32-digit alphanumeric key here that is unique to this card. Save. All right, so now what it's doing is it first looked through all of the projects within BIM 360, my BIM 360 hub, that I have permissions. We'll talk about permissions later. Click here, and now I go to 2021 permissions testing, which is project I'm in here. Now it's reading through the files that are there, and I can select any of the files that are in here. I want to pause here just for a second to show that these show different projects. That's just the way this particular project has been set up. It'll just read whatever is in your document management section. In fact, after I've done this, I'll show you what it's reading here. So anyway, we go through here, and it's gone out. It's sent a package up to Forge. The package has come back down, and it gives me this information. So here's the data that we're getting. We're not modifying your model. I want to make sure that's clearly emphasized. There's no touching of your model as far as modifying or deleting or adding any information to it. All it is really doing is asking the model for what the project is, what the file is, the file size, the Revit version. Even though we at Ideate Software always put the Revit version here, you may not know what the version is. It'll read that. It'll also read the last published date. We are working on the published versions that you have into BIM 360. And so this might be of interest to you. In fact, this one hasn't been republished in 5 months. That might be correct. That might be, oh my, we should have published something recently, or we need to publish. All right, the published version, in this case, it's published version 1. You at least know how many published versions it is. And of course, then unranked warnings, and then red, yellow, green. And so when we talk about that the dashboard uses Ideate Explorer technology, what we're saying here is that it's using the rankings that we have developed to create the red, yellow, and green and unranked. So you also get to count the total number here and really see that maybe this file is a file that you need to look at or not look at. If for some reason the 64 red warnings causes the person looking at this KPI to get worried about it, we have this little icon right here, which opens up your email browser. In my case, it is Outlook. And then I could simply say, Richard, and it tells, it's been, warnings have been found in this project. The file is known to have warnings, and it says the number of critical warnings is 64, and gives the person a login to look at those. All right. So let me go back just so there's no misunderstanding of this portion right in here, because this particular project has been set up a little differently. So let me just go here. And so what it reads is what exists here in the document management portion. So it reads what's under project files, and it reads the subfolders that are under here. These are how we've created them. You create your projects in your unique ways. Maybe you separate it by, I've seen it separated by buildings and within a group of buildings in this project. I've seen it separated by levels, believe it or not. I've also seen it separated by consultants, architecture, mechanical, structural, and so on. So it's just reading that and then going and looking underneath at the files that exists underneath. So none there. Let me keep going. There's got to be files here somewhere. There we go. It's looking at all those files. So let me come back now to the project homepage and show you a mistake that's very common, because I made it. Notice here how there's nothing here. Let me show you what I didn't do. And if you have this problem, the problem that you have is that you did not do the save button. It's very easy to miss this button in the upper right-hand corner. So if you don't save it, it doesn't save the layout and doesn't save the card. So with that said, I'm now going to go on and create another card. But first, before I do that, Richard, are there any questions over this first kind of process that we had that anybody might have?
Yeah, there actually are a couple just that it's good to clarify.
Yep.
And one of the questions was, is it only the published version of the files? Which I think you mentioned that yes, it was, but
it is. It is.
Okay,
It's
just
only
thought I'd
the
clarify that.
Yep.
And then another question was asked about the sample or test partner URL, and I said that is something that we also give you. That's that cut and paste that you did. They were just looking for, do we have a sample card that we can use? And absolutely. I guess you'd call that a sample card, right?
I'm a little, let's step back. You talking about what I typed in the partner URL? Is that
correct?
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's, yes, in our instructions that I'll show you at the very end, there's 3 types of cards we have, and each of them have a different beginning URL. And I'll slow down when I get to this next one, when I do the second card, to show you what I'm doing at that moment in time. But yes, it's the first part that says ideatesolutions.com/ in my first case, it was stoplight.html, is gets the process going, and then the 32-digit alphanumeric number is the URL. That whole combined URL is the unique URL that applies to that card. And you don't have to remember the 32-digit. You really don't.
Exactly. And then actually, this just came in. I thought this is a good one if you'd like to address it. There was a question about, is it possible to run the Ideate Cloud process or one of these cards as a sort of an auto publish or on selected projects, like on a weekly basis?
Yeah, there's been a lot of questions regarding that. So the auto publish within BIM 360 runs under design collaboration, if I remember right. BIM 360 design collaboration has a publishing that would allow it to you would then lift the publishing from version whatever to version whatever +1. And then there's a refresh button that I'll show you here that would then refresh it to that next one.
Excellent.
That's the best way to do that. That's a great question, whoever said that. Regarding the first question, regarding the published, if it only looks for published, if that person wants to type in the question box, if they would want it another way, like on the sync, please type in what you think the reason why you'd want it that way. We've had a lot of discussions with customers during our beta process, and kind of universally, because BIM 360 pushes publishing, we focused on the published version as the true demarcation, or the true thing we're trying to get to. All right.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think there was a question on pricing, but I know you're going to get to that, so we'll hold that
Pricing's
off.
at the end. Yep. Yeah, they got to wait to the end to see the pricing, and that's strange. All right, so let us do the thing I want to do here, which is to save. Remember, I said don't make sure you did that. See how it says page layout saved. All right, so now we can come in here, click on here, click configure right here. You can do it there. You can do it up here. I like here because I can see it. All right, again, the card title does not matter. I focus less and less on the card title these days. So the next one I want to show you is one called bar HTML. All right, so this part right here, the part I just typed in under the partner URL, just simply tells the card which one of the 3 visualizations we want to start off with. Then what we're going to do, once we go through the little wizard, then we're going to come back into this partner URL and say, we have now defined exactly what we want to do and tied it to this card. We never have to touch the partner URL again. We could certainly afterwards change the card title at any moment in time, because that's just some metadata, as it were. All right, so let me hit save. All right, so now we get the same kind of, little wizard here in which I copy it to the clipboard. Remember, I come up here, do configure, and do this simple Control A, Control V to give me this GUI ID that sits right here. Hit save one more time. Now, what I have the ability to do here is same process as before. So after you've done this kind of once, it becomes second nature. But now it's looking at all the files within this project, collecting them together, all right? And now doing a warnings per megabyte. So I'll talk about this first, then I'll talk about the folder. And to just step aside for a second, remember I said with the auto publishing, the refresh button, there's the refresh button right there. But let me get back. So this particular one is called a warnings per megabyte. And so this equalizes all the files we're looking at here based upon file size back to warnings. So you could have a very large file that has quite a few warnings, but that might not be as problematic as a smaller file that has a lot fewer. So all we've done here is done the math and said we've taken the total number of warnings and divided it by the megabyte of file size to equalize all of these out. And so what this allows you to do is look at a variety of size of files and then determine which one has the largest number of warnings per megabyte. As with all of our bar charts, you're able to hover over any one of the files and get some data. As you can see there, it gives you the data of file size and total number of warnings and last published, so on and so forth. As I go down here, that changes. Also, with this, we can click on any of our bar charts, we can click and that drills you down to get you more information, and then use this button right here to go back up so I can go back and forth. This red vertical line has been put in here as a marker that Ideate Software has created that says in our analysis, this is the line that people are most interested in, which is about 1 warning per megabyte. And then this little kind of yield symbol right here, as the tooltip says the warning counts may be incorrect due to a known room bounding issue. This usually deals with linked files and dealing with an MAP file that has a different way of doing room bounding. All right. So let's go up here and talk about the next item, which is this folder. In the bar charts, in these stack bar charts where we're looking at the top 5, we have made it so you can look at these in 2 different ways. We can either look at it as a gross. We're looking at all the files within that project, combine them all together and looking at them as an aggregate. But based upon beta input from our customers, they also wanted to see it within any one of the subfolders. Now, this would be really great, as users have kind of indicated, is that if you've got a setup in which maybe you're the architect on a project and you've got a mechanical and you've got acoustical and you've got structural, you may not care about their warnings, and so you may only want to look at your architectural subfolder. Or you may want to look at the structural subfolder in my example here because you're interested in how many warnings they might have that may be hindering performance. But in this case, these are really just different projects, and I could just come in here and pick one that has some. Let's try this. Nope, keep on picking one that only has one underneath. There we go. So in this case, now I'm only looking at the top 5 within this particular subfolder. So I further narrow my view that way. All right. The last one I want to show you, the different is a variation of this in which we're going to do the same process. And I go about it exactly the same way. Customize, configure. All right. So just as an aside, people have asked me, well, how does this really work? Well, really what happens is that the data is collected, it is sent up to the Forge API, and then it's sent back down. And the data is sent back down to us as what's called a work package. This does consume cloud credits, and those cloud credits are not paid by the customer, they're paid by Ideate Software. Just for that question that may come up for those of you who are in the know about cloud credits. So let me do that. I do the same process here. All right. In this case, the difference here is that it just gives me the raw count. So if you're interested in the raw count, you can do it this way. If you're interested in the warnings per megabyte, you can do it that way. So those are 3 cards that we started off with. We're always interested in customer input about what other data you'd like to see on this. It varies a bit from customer to customer, but we're always interested. You could always send it to me, or you could always send it to support@ideatesoftware.com, and we look at them consistently to try and seriously to see how we can best give you further data visualization. Lastly, I'd like to show you another approach that some customers have adopted, in which they've created an aggregated project. And before I get too far into this project, rather than stepping away, has no files within it. So it's an empty project that's being created that we just call Aggregated Project. You could call it anything you'd like, in which now I am looking at my entire portfolio in different ways. So I'm just saying I'm interested in this project and it's this file. I'm interested in this project and this file, and I'm interested in these 2 projects as far as an overall look. And I can change these on the fly, meaning I can change them at any time along the way. So maybe this particular one, I am no longer interested in. I'm interested in looking today at a project that I think I want to archive. I just want to make sure I look at it real quickly. So it gives you kind of a dashboard, and I get to do it rather than fixing the dashboard. I am making it in a way that I can kind of look at it in a more dynamic way. And sometimes this is, so just so you know, this is it sending it back and forth, which is a bit inhibited by my webcast data also, so it can be a little slower. So I can look at this and say, okay, we're ready to archive this. I don't have to even then go into the project. I can just look at my aggregator project here. Okay, that one's ready to go. So I can change these as I go along. So it's not static. It's very fluid in that way. We just call it aggregator. You could call it anything. You could call it warnings overview. so on and so forth. So anyway, that's an aggregated project. All right, so now let us, well, first, Richard, is there anything that you would like to, any questions as I head to the assets that are available to users?
Just one quick one. Is this only available in the Autodesk BIM 360 environment?
Yes, so the projects must reside within the document portion, the document managed. So it's reading, let me step to the project I was at before. So what it reads is here in the document management, it's reading here under project files. So if you have a file that doesn't reside within BIM 360, the Forge API has no way to pull it and look at it.
Another question just came in. Actually, you and I were talking about this earlier, David, was about permission. So a question came through that they're not prime on the project. So they're MEP consultants, but they don't have project administration permissions.
Correct. Yep.
So would they be able to work with this?
They would be able to work with it. So there's two, that's a great question. And it's a question that Autodesk BIM 360 has modified recently, like in the summer this year. So I want to give you the best answer today that I can, which is first, there's two ways. We follow along with what the BIM 360 environment does regarding permissions. So there's two ways in BIM 360 to create permissions. One deals with roles, and then anytime you put a member under that role, they give you the permission. And that's fine. Many people aren't using that. The other level is at a document level. And so this is a great location, Richard, to show you that. So each one of these have a different level. I can apply a different level of permissions down to the file level. Usually it's done at a folder level. So right here, as I click on the ellipse, the three dots to most of us, and I click on permissions. All right. So you can see here that so you need to have a certain level of permissions to create cards, and that level of permissions you need is only view and download. So if you're not to answer the MEP's question, if you're not the prime and you're not the site holder, then the site administrator has to give you at least view and download. And so I often say or higher, but in this particular dialog box, it's actually lower. But you see what higher level of permission, but lower on this screen. So only view only does not, you're not able to see or create cards. So in this case, I would be able to, but none of these other people. But if for some reason I were to take Glynis Patterson here and lift her to view and download, now she would be able to. I think that answers.
That's great. And just kind of a little bit quickly on top of that is like if you are in a project and let's say like right now you're architect ABC, can you make it available to other consultants so that they can see it or not visible?
As long as they have, so the consultants would have to have their own account with us, then they would be able to see it. That's different than internal. Sometimes we get the question is, I want to create them, but have other people within my team, meaning other colleagues, co-employees. So which question are you asking? Are you asking both, Richard? I'm sorry.
The exact question was, they've published the project on their BIM 360. Can other consultants that they have see it too? And if yes, is there a way to make it so that it's visible? Can we use Insight instead of Project Home?
Okay, so there's two parts to that question. First, let me answer it directly. So first is that consultant could only see those cards if they had an account with Ideate software also. And yes, on the second part of the question, yes, you can see it in Insight, but it's not supported by us. Project Home is the only one that's supported currently. We haven't seen any problems with Insight, but using the Insight page, Insight right there. But I want to just make sure the person knows Autodesk at any time could change how they deal with it. and we're not really tracking Insight at this moment to make sure that's what I mean by not supported. So Autodesk about every 6 weeks or so does changes to BIM 360 that we have to spend time to make sure it doesn't break what we do. We're not currently monitoring Insight to make sure the card works. To date, and that was about a month or so ago, I was able to create a card on Insight without any problem, but I can't promise that that would be in the future of the BIM 360 world if Autodesk changes it on the BIM 360 side. The other part that's inherent with your question that I want to make sure I cover here is, let's go back and go back to Project Home. If that person that's interested in Insight wants to reach out to me and ask some further questions, I'll kind of go into, I'll kind of dig into it a little farther with them.
That's great. Thank you.
All right, so let me just change this for a second here. And interesting. This usually, when it says no valid, it usually means it wants me to sign out and sign back in. It's gotten confused. I've fiddled with it in the wrong way. So let me sign out, because I do want to show you one more thing. Let's do the following. All right. So I wanted to point out here that the other scenario is, could I share a card internally? So let's suppose I've created a card I want to share with Richard. I could simply send him this entire URL, Control A, and then copy it and put it into an email. And then Richard could just simply place this URL and he'd have the exact same card I would have. So internally, it's easier to share cards, is what I wanted to make sure I stated. All right, so let's go on. Go ahead.
And real quickly, conversely with that is that if you had other consultants, they wouldn't necessarily see the card per se if they have access to that project.
They would be able to see, so no user, so this is my Project Home.
Right.
So yours, Richard's, would not look like this, even if well, I don't know if you have access to this project. Now, yours wouldn't look like this. So these are cards for me, and therefore it's unique. And so what we've tried to do by doing this copying is allow you and I internally. So in that same vein, even if I was the contractor on a project and I had Ideate Dashboard, and then you were maybe my structural engineer, helping me on this project. If you didn't have access to the Ideate Dashboard, you wouldn't be able to see the card clearly because the custom integration isn't completed. But if you did, then we could share cards this method, but you would not automatically see it. Tried to answer that about 3 different ways. Hopefully I
know. Well, there were several questions regarding that, so that's why I wanted, but thank you very much.
No problem. And if I didn't, please ask any follow-on questions if I confused anybody along the way. I tried not to. All right, so let's go on to the right before we deal with pricing. For those of you interested, you'll see this URL again at the very end, but this is sort of our entry page. It gives, so if you have someone on your team just sort of interested and they weren't they didn't attend this webinar or don't have time to listen to the recording, I have a very short, under 3-minute video, which really goes through exactly in a very quick way what we discussed today. And then we ask for people who are interested to simply fill out this short form and agree to the terms and conditions. So that's the starting point. After you've accepted, you've purchased, then here are the assets we use to assist you along the way, because I know I went through some steps maybe quicker than you wanted to. So we have this help page, and we have a table of contents, everything from getting started to frequently asked questions, to troubleshooting, to release notes, and of course videos. So under the getting started, we have, let me just take an example of like creating the stoplight card. We have 2 ways that we can walk you through it. So if you click right there, you'll see that you'll be able to, this is what I call pick and click, in which it shows you step by step and screen captures. So if you're that type of person that likes doing it that way, it's available to you here. And notice here how I have that type in, so you could just copy that, right? Copy it, and you'd be able to paste it right in. The other way, if you don't learn that way or don't implement in that way, we also have videos for everything, which goes through it. They're all very short. So let me find here we go. In the same way, here's the stoplight card, and this probably is 3 minutes or less. So they're very short, and that walks you through, again, step by step, so you could stop. So it just depends on how you learn and how you like implementing things. And these could be shared with other users. All right. The other thing I wanted to show you here is, let's go back to where we were. There's some questions that people ask. We have an FAQ page, which is, let me make this a little bigger for you all so you can read it a little better. There we go. So what versions will it visualize? Revit 2018 through Revit 2021, that's the BIM 360. People ask me how must the Revit files be loaded. There's 3 different ways. You can publish in Revit, you can use the folders upload, and of course you can drag and drop. It works in all 3. Here we have a discussion about permissions levels for those of you who, I do it in a shorter version, and I also give you a link to an Autodesk Knowledge Network to, if your permissions are new to you or you're still learning about them in BIM 360. All right, browsers supported. We support all the major browsers except for Safari. So Chrome, the new Microsoft Edge, Brave, which people use quite a bit in Firefox. What settings must exist on the browser? Pop-ups must be allowed for the authentication to work, and then our Ideate solutions must be in the allowed website list. All right, and so there's some other questions, and including some user information. All right, so that's the FAQs. If you should happen to have, back. As always, if troubleshooting, what we know about troubleshooting, this gets changed as we learn about more things. And of course, Ideate support at ideatesoftware.com is there to assist you. As those of you familiar with Ideate software, we reach out and we get back to you fairly quickly. All right, so now let me come in here and we're near the home stretch here. So here's the pricing. MSRP is US $795 per year per BIM 360 account ID. That's unlimited users and unlimited projects. And we have an early adopter through December 31st of this year, $595 per year per BIM 360 account ID. Again, it doesn't matter how many Revit projects you have within your BIM 360 hub or how many users that might be looking at the cards. All right, that completes my part of the presentation. Here is that URL. As I said, the webinar is recorded and you'll get a copy of the link to it. And so anyway, that's that. Please follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. And that finishes me. Richard, is there any final questions?
Actually, this is one I think you might have covered, but the stoplight card, does it show, can you drill down to the individual warning, or is it just the overview for what high ranked, medium and low ranked warnings?
It is an overview. There's some interest on some customers' part to drill down a little farther. It's on a roadmap to look at, of giving you some visualizations for what that is. But right now, it's really just an overview of that. It's a visualization of which fall into which category. It is based upon, as I said, the Ideate Explorer technology of the XML that gives you those default warnings into those, what is essence, 4 buckets.
Excellent.
All right. I want to thank everybody for attending. Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, appreciate everyone's attention and great questions on the webinar today. Thank you.